Welcome into the non-neutral zone. It's all about football with Brandon, Josh, and producer Gunner.
Welcome back to the non-neutral zone. It's another good episode on the way. You know, we rock these things out every week for you guys, and here we are, me and Brandon, and no, Brandon.
That's not right.
It's me and Patty Lynch as the host today with our special guest Dylan. How's it going, fellas?
Going great.
Wonderful. Glad to be here.
Brandon's not here. We were not expecting to be Brandonless today. That's a little less Brandon than we usually have, and that's pretty extraordinary. We're going to go ahead. We're going to try to work this thing out. Go ahead and start out with our usual right off the top. You can find us at Non-Neutral Zone 1 on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, and we would appreciate it if you would subscribe, listen, download, hit us with a 5-star review if you enjoy the show. If you don't enjoy the show, just hang with us for a little bit. We're working on some stuff. We're getting better each and every day. Yeah, go ahead and do all that stuff. Do it. It's fun. It's good for you. Yeah, do it. Now we've actually got some good analytics on the show with us. We've got Patty Lynch and Dylan here. They're really going to break this down. They're going to get some of that rah-rah out of here. And we're going to talk about some stuff that really is going to help you win your league this year. All right. So, guys, not a lot going on in the news. You know, there's a little bit here and there. Pat was actually just telling us about Dalvin Cook, having a little back and forth between his agent and the team. You want to reiterate that, Pat? We can just kind of talk about that for a second before we get into
Yeah, of course. Just from what I've seen on Twitter, online, the news. Actually, it sounds like there is no communication between Dalvin Cook and his agent. From what I've read, the head coach came out and said that Dalvin Cook would be back for training camp. And then Dalvin Cook's agent came out publicly and said, no, he will not. And then I think a few hours later in the day, I think it may have been yesterday or Saturday, if you're listening to this on Tuesday. And then the running backs coach came out and said, I have talked to Dalvin and he will be back. And then Dalvin's agent came out and said, no, he will not yet again. So I think it's up in the air.
It sounds like they're really taking social distancing to another level there.
Yeah.
Wow. Not even another phone call. I'll have your people talk to my people through some other people, and we'll figure it out. Type thing. That's crazy, man. I would love some clarity, and with no training camp, it's really. And now no preseason.
Yeah.
We're going to have training camp, but no preseason. We're not going to know what's really going on, I don't think. I mean, do you think Dalvin shows up for training camp?
From what I've read, I think so. It sounds like he doesn't have much wiggle room in the way of financial incentive to hold out. I think he starts getting hit pretty hard. I think even training camp, he starts losing some money somehow in his contract. I don't know all the details, but I think he's got a lot of incentive to show up. He didn't have much room to force them to give him a big contract, I don't think, this year. But
yeah, I mean, it's looked that way the entire time, but it didn't have him. He didn't have any trouble, at least sticking his stuff out there and just saying, "I'm not showing up." Initially, well, maybe they won't look at the paperwork.
Right.
They didn't read the terms of agreement or something.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun to see.
And he's a top 5, top 6 overall pick. I mean, in most circles,
he's top 5 for me if he is there.
So that's big
I think
news.
It's your top 3. I think it's your top 3 of either CMC, Saquon, Ezekiel, and then I think it's Dalvin. I take Dalvin over Michael Thomas. Yeah,
I would too, and Kamara. I think.
What about you, Dylan? What do you think?
Absolutely take him over those two fellas with Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, I think. But we've seen it before. We've seen it last year. We've seen it with Le'Veon Bell before that. It's just a scary time fantasy-wise for going with Dalvin Cook. No telling what he's going to do.
You got to decide how big the kahunas are if you're going to draft him. Am I
going to be reaching for Madison?
Take this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you take him, you got to guarantee that you've got a guy.
I'm taking Madison, but potentially in the 6th, 7th round.
Absolutely. If you take Dalvin, especially.
Yeah.
With that being said, that's pretty much all the news that we really had. We wanted to talk about, but let's kind of break the ice here as we get into the episode. Before we get into free balling, I wanted to ask you guys through the off season. Now that we're gearing up, we're getting ready for training camp. What's been the most exciting most fantasy impactful transaction of the offense for you? Like, what's really got you going? Dylan, what is it for you?
Well, for me, it's obviously Cam Newton going to the Patriots, because we had a big question mark there with Tom Brady leaving and not knowing how Stidham's going to play out. We haven't seen a whole lot on Stidham. What we have seen through preseason and stuff is not the greatest thing in the world. But with Cam, you're opening up a lot of opportunities for for that position, and also for our receivers. I think N'Keal Harry has a chance of being a lot better receiver now with Cam Newton under center than when Stidham was looking like he was going to be our starter. And there's no final answer on Cam being the starter, but if he's healthy, I think there's no other choice but Newton right now. Wasn't the biggest Newton fan, but I mean, we need him. We need him.
It's going to be interesting. That is interesting to talk about. I did not think that we would be going there in this part of the show, but it's going to be interesting to see, like, if Bill goes with Cam, and if he does he alter his offense, or McDaniels, does he offer his alter his offense for him? Because Cam does potentially bring in that mobility aspect. But here's the thing: when you bring in a guy like Cam, if you change that offense and then you go with a guy like Stidham, they're two completely different players. So if Cam gets hurt and goes down, do you change the offense again in the middle of the season when you bring in Stidham? Do you swap it up, or do you just keep running what you were running and hope Stidham can move?
Yeah, it's a big question mark for sure. It could definitely backfire on us, but and I was never real big on Cam Newton because of he has been injured. He's had all these things happen with him, but when he played full seasons, man, he really showed out. But like you said, if we alter it to his style and he goes down, then we may be in some big trouble. That's for sure.
What are your thoughts, Pat? What do you think about it?
That's good points. I was going to say Dylan made a good point about N'Keal Harry. Just personally, like in mock drafts, I'm looking at him a lot more lately, late in drafts, just because knowing Cam Newton might be there. Got a pretty strong arm. We've seen him turn Devin Funchess into a fantasy relevant wide receiver. He's played well in most of a full season, I think. But
Kelvin Benjamin as well. I mean,
yeah, Kelvin Benjamin. So you think maybe if he stays healthy,
both
N'Keal
those
Harry,
guys were what, top 20, top 25 receivers?
Yeah, I think they were wide receiver twos. I mean, in fantasy, the years that they had their big years with Cam Newton. So I think he can definitely elevate some of those wide receivers. Make them could into potential late round steals if he is the starting quarterback and stays healthy and helps move that offense.
Well, who did you have for your most impactful transaction this offseason, Pat? Like he said, Cam Newton there to the New England Patriots. What got you going? What did you think was exciting?
There's a few, a handful of big ones. I'll kind of go the easy way and kind of do a 2-for-1, but Deandre Hopkins to Arizona, and in the same transaction, as you're probably aware, David Johnson to the Texans. I think that's huge for both of those players and offenses.
It's huge.
Yeah, I think obviously I think that's a big hit to Deshaun Watson. A big, improvement for Kyler Murray. I think the hype for him just that even elevates it more so going into his second year. And me, I'm a pretty big David Johnson guy. I have been since his breakout year. I actually drafted him in our league of record that year, my first round pick.
He's a likable player, and he's always been he was talented, before Father Time got a hold of that.
Yeah, he's slowed down
for him.
But I have hope. I have hope, and I think because of the volume, he should get there in Houston. David Johnson should be a good value at like a running back too. So
that's what I was getting ready to say, is the volume should keep him relatively safe. And I know it's fun to talk about the DeAndre Hopkins, but I kind of want to stick with the David Johnson pick that you had there.
Yeah.
Outside of volume, and you talked about Deshaun Watson, I think he's going to level out. I think his attempts may come down, but I think he's going to have more rushing attempts out of the pocket, scrambling around. Do you agree with that? Do you think that maybe he kind of ends up where he was last year anyway?
Are you talking about David Johnson specifically?
No. Deshaun Watson, since he lost DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, for sure. You don't have that elite talent to throw to. Yeah, you don't have that, that like clear cut, alpha dominant wide receiver that he's gonna, that he knows well and trusts. gone.
I think you end up with 3 or 4 guys around 700-800 receiving yards. I don't think you really have a dominant receiver there. Do you agree? Like maybe you try to look for the guy that gets the touchdown upside.
Yeah, I think one of either Brandon Cooks or Will Fuller is going to be a good value. You got to roll the dice and pick one usually because they're going pretty close together, like in that 6 to 8 round, 6, 7, 8th round range.
I actually think that when you look at him, I like Randall Cobb because of what he did with Kiki Kuti there, in that kind of slot role. He was a reception hog. And with the amount of experience at this point that Randall Cobb has, he should be able to finesse his way into several catches. I mean, he's probably going to be a big-time PPR guy. If he can gain the trust of Sean Watson in the red zone, he'll be a favorite.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dylan? What are your thoughts?
I think it's definitely a good thing for D-Hop. Now for Deshaun Watson, I think it's not so great. I mean, he's getting David Johnson in the backfield, but I mean, opposite of what Pat says, I don't really have a lot of faith in what David Johnson may do. He's just been on a downhill over the last couple of seasons, and I don't really see him coming back going into this offense, especially with the coaching staff that's going on there. It doesn't really seem stable, not to me.
Yeah, well, we don't disagree with that, but I do think that there is a point to be made about sheer volume for David Johnson. Will keep him relevant. I think he keeps him in that RB2 range, and where he's going, I think, is in the back part of the 4th round. I think around 410 or 411.
Yeah.
Going there, I mean, you're getting an RB2 at that point. That means you're getting a pretty balanced roster if you get a guy like David Johnson, if he can produce the same kind of, even what he did last year when he was active for Arizona.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, at that spot.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna push forward, and I'm gonna ask you what was the least exciting for me. I think it was Cam Newton going to the Patriots. I didn't blow my skirt up at all.
Well, I was going to go with David Johnson. Honestly, is what I had. I was honestly going with David Johnson.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. What do you got, Pat? You got something different?
As my least, I mean, I don't know. I saw a few.
Yeah.
I mean, like these are low hanging fruit, but like Eric Ebron to the Steelers. I know he was on your Colts. Like that. I mean, Vance McDonald, the Vance dance was hot last year. There's some hype. I don't. There's still going to be competition.
Never got going though.
Yeah, I don't see Eric Ebron excelling as well as he did in Indianapolis.
Let me ask you guys about this. What do you think about Stephon Diggs to the Bills? Because to me, that's not very exciting.
I like it for Josh Allen. Just another weapon for him. I think
if he can get a little bit of accuracy, if he can get a little bit of accuracy going. What about you, Pat? What do you think about it?
I don't know. I was kind of, saw it as a big downgrade for him originally, but I've looked at it a little bit closer, and like Dylan said, I think that's a big improvement for Josh Allen. For Stephon Diggs himself, I think, I was thinking, well, he's going to a team with a great defense and, it's run heavy. Then I thought, well, he just came from a team that was the exact same. So, and he still, had some pretty successful years. I think he can still, I think he could be a value too. I think people are kind of dropping on him. I'm seeing him go in, even the 6th round, and I've seen him go in 6th round in some mocks pretty late.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth a shot there. To me, the main thing is, he comes from a role where he could be the guy that stretches the field to now he's kind of playing the role that Adam Thielen has in Minnesota. Yeah. I feel like, because they paid John Brown last year to come in to be the field stretcher, and he showed that he could be great at it. I'll just be interested to see how that works with Josh Allen, because anybody in that role last year, we did not see them find success. Yeah. As a reception hog, it just kind of got spread around. The running backs kind of got some catches. And I think they will make a point to get Stephon Diggs the ball, and John Brown will just get to be that deep guy. So, I mean, there's a chance that it works out, and especially at that price tag, you're probably not finding a receiver with a bigger upside there.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with him as my wide receiver 3. I'd say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've kind of got the ice broke there. It's broken up. We got some cubes just kind of sliding around everywhere. Let's get over here into free balling.
Free balling.
All right, guys. We've kind of been doing a little bit of a little bit of a non-neutral zone Olympics, if you will, on some fantasy games over the last few weeks. This week we're going to try to do one. We're going to call it Studs and Duds. Basically, I'm going to give you a player, and we'll break it down through conversation. We're going to look at, ADP, where they finished last year, all kinds of stuff, and just see if you guys think they're going to finish as better or worse than where they're being taken. Or what's being expected of them. That's pretty important. When you draft a guy, you've got expectations. Are they going to meet it or are they not going to meet it? And we're going to start with the guy we just talked about, DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre, he's got a fantasy community is pretty unwilling to plant their flag one way or another. Everybody's pretty lukewarm. They don't want to say he's going to stink in Arizona. They don't want to say he's going to be great in Arizona. They just want to say wide receiver 5. If he blows up, then we got him good. If he doesn't, then we took the best player available anyway. What do you guys think there? Do you think he's going to be a stud or a dud at that kind of point there, wide receiver 5?
I think he's a stud for sure. I mean, he hasn't shown anything that makes me think any differently anywhere else. And going to Arizona with, Larry Fitzgerald still on the field, that old guy still playing and still playing pretty good. And with the quarterback that he's got, that's kind of a dual threat quarterback. I mean, and you got DeAndre Hopkins now. I don't see him taking any steps back, and I'm really big on him. And I'm kind of glad that he's going a little bit lower now, so maybe I'll be able to grab him up a little later.
You share those thoughts, Pat?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think we touched on it a little earlier when we were talking about that trade. But yeah, I'm pretty. I'd for sure say he's stud over dud. Pretty excited about in that offense. I think he's, quarterbacks you could say are comparable. But I think in that offense, another team with a relative poor defense. So, they're going to be throwing a lot. I think he's still going to get his targets.
What wide receivers are you taking over DeAndre Hopkins?
Over DeAndre Hopkins. I think when
Michael Thomas.
Easily Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. Gets a little iffier, but probably Julio.
I think I draw the line at Tyreek Hill there. I think it's 3 guys that I would take over him. Okay. And then for me, it's DeAndre Hopkins, just because we've talked about that age cliff with players that play certain roles, and that wide receiver style that Julio Jones plays with. We've seen it several times in the past, where there's a dip. And I mean, he's an otherworldly kind of guy. Like he could play 2-3 more years. We don't know, but I don't want to be the one caught holding the bill at the end of dinner there. You know what I mean? So,
I could see that. Yeah, that's why I think that's that 4 or 5 spot between Julio and him is pretty close. But I still would say I have him as top 5.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we're all in consensus there that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a stud again this year in the new offense there with all the new weapons and Cliff Kingsbury and his exciting offense. So we got another wide receiver. Let's see, Mike Evans. Another big-time wide receiver name. He's got a lot of questions from the offseason, just like DeAndre Hopkins. New quarterback coming in. Already, you had plenty of weapons there, and they bring in Gronk, who I don't really qualify necessarily as an explosive weapon at this point in his career, but, he is a guy that Tom Brady's going to target due to familiarity. What do you guys think? Is he going to be a stud or a dud?
Got him going as a stud, in my opinion. I mean, he's Mike Evans, and he's got Tom Brady coming in, and I think some people may disagree with me, but Tom Brady is the GOAT, and he's definitely a better quarterback than Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is a gunslinger. I'll give you that. He's going to throw it down the field a little bit more. And Mike Evans may lose a few targets because of that, but I think he's going to have a lot more accurate throws to him when he does go to him. And Tom Brady is going to use him completely different and not throw 30 interceptions while trying to do it.
Yeah, Mike Evans is currently going at 210. Pretty good. He's going start of the second round last year, I feel like, at this time. So he's dropped almost a full round there at the end of the second. What do you think, Pat?
I think I disagree, actually, with Dylan. I think the target competition is going to be much heavier. I think Tom Brady's a great quarterback. He's had a great career. He is 43 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I think his average depth of targets ridiculously low in the last couple of years. I think he targets the running backs out of the backfield much more frequently than he used to.
I think we can pretty much just look at his whole career, and it's been that way. But I think on a more frequent basis.
For sure, in the last few years. But I think, we're talking, I don't even remember what was the how many Jameis Winston, how many passes he attempted last year. It was well over 600, I believe. Yeah. I think that could be cut by, you're talking 150 potentially pass attempts less than what it was last year, even 200.
If they roll Tom Brady out there and try to throw the ball 600 plus times, they're going to have to bury him in the end zone after one of these games.
Yeah, I mean, I think this helps. I think I'm still pretty high on Chris Godwin, but honestly, I think this might hurt the Tom Brady. Coming to town might actually hurt Evans more than any of the other wide receivers, in my opinion.
I think it hurts them all. Honestly, just less attempts is going to hurt the entire receiving core, I believe. Because even if you funnel the targets through one guy, you still got one guy with 120 targets instead of 150.
Right. And you just mentioned, but they got a pretty big name tight end that came with him, I think, Gronkowski.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which did, man, it drove me crazy, them bringing him in. They've got two young, really good tight ends there in Brate and O.J. Howard.
Yeah.
But instead of using them, they listen to this old codger that walks in the door and says, I need my Gronk.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a mistake because we saw him the end of before he retired. He retired. Before he retired, we saw him. He needed crutches. Yeah. He was out there just hobbling around. He was terrible. He was stiff. He was
the reason we won a Super Bowl against the Rams, for sure.
Yeah.
He caught a very clutch
What was the score
deep
on that
ball.
game, Dylan?
We won't talk about the score on it, but we will talk about the win.
All right. He's not the reason you won. The reason you won was because of defense and defense alone. So, with that being said, stud or dud? Mm-hmm. You said stud. Pat says dud.
Yeah, I'm off of him.
I'm obligated to say dud based on the argument that we just put forth. So we'll find out if we're right or wrong on that.
That's not to say I was going to add this isn't. That's not saying I don't think Mike Evans is an incredible wide receiver.
I think he's a great talent.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be hamstrung.
Right. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. All right. So those two guys, we talked about an offseason filled with questions. Austin Eckler just experienced a spring and summer. Had our heads spinning. It's a riddle. New quarterback, Melvin Gordon gone. First full season with current offensive coordinator. What do you think? You think he's a stud or a dud? He's kind of an enigma. It seems like the fantasy community is torn down the middle in this guy because he's good. He's a good player. But at the same time, there's a whole lot changing there. And they brought in another running back in the draft. What do you guys think? What do you think, Pat?
I actually had Eckler in our league of record last year, so I followed him pretty closely. Mm-hmm. He was balling the first few weeks when Gordon was holding out. I think he was the RB2 in the first 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So obviously I know there's that kind of upside. As you mentioned, the new quarterback in Tyrod Taylor or Herbert, if he ends up getting underdone. Melvin Gordon gone though, I think it clears a path for him to continue what he's done, but I do think his targets could come down significantly from what they were last year, just because I think Phillip Rivers is another one of those older big time targeting the quarterback. The running back kind of quarterbacks. So I'm kind of hesitant on him. I have him more as a high end RB2, mid RB2 than a
he's going as RB13. So
okay, that's a little higher than I'd probably take him. So I don't know, relative to if his ADP is there, I'd say, I don't know if I'd call him a dud, but I wouldn't take him at RB13. I'd probably feel more comfortable in the 15 to 20 range.
Yeah. What about you, Dylan? Do you feel similar on him or?
Yeah, I feel about the same that Pat feels. Like you said, Phillip Rivers, he checked it down to the running back more than any other quarterback last year. So with that, he is going to lose some, but he also showed that he can play the position. So he's, like you said, he's a little bit of a mixed bag there.
One last tidbit before we give the final judgment here on Mr. Eckler. For lack of a better word, we'll use judgment. He did come out and say, he's not going to be a bell cow back. They're going to use a multitude of players, but they're going to line him up all over the field as wide receiver, a few different things. Does that change how you feel?
No, not really. I think he's just mediocre.
Yeah. I don't know that changes how I feel. I kind of take that into account when I think about him.
Kind of expected anyway, right?
Right. I kind of view him as like a James White, from, New England, kind of similar role. He's been a pretty steady, consistent low-end RB2.
I don't think he's a guy that can finish as the RB1 over the course of a season. And when I draft a running back, even as my RB2, I'm hoping that they've got the capability in them. You know, they've got the upside where they can be a top 3 back, and I just don't
Right.
think Eckler can do that over the course of a season.
I
So
don't
I'm going to say
disagree.
dud just based on what I'm shopping for when I'm getting my groceries on draft day.
I
But he's
agree.
still a stud probably from RB13. I mean, he probably finishes right about there or higher.
Yeah.
What, Dylan, stud or dud?
I'm going to go dud.
Dud. We 3 duds.
3 duds.
We're out. All right, so let's go tight end. We got George Kittle on the docket here. He exploded last season. He was the second best tight end, and he's undeniable, you know, as a talent. But for me, you know, Super Bowl slump is real. He was 4th in targets at the position last year for across the league. So he had 107 targets, and his cost on draft day is ridiculous. So all that compounded, what do you guys think?
I'm going to go dud, or a stud, not dud, for sure. A stud, Kittle. He's one of the best players on their offense, if not the best player on their offense, and one of the reasons why they did get as far, other than their defense, obviously. You know.
Yeah. So you're not worried about a Super Bowl slump at all?
Not so much. I mean, he's a dominant guy. He had a bad Super Bowl. He didn't. I think he only caught the ball 3 times in the entire game. I think he comes back. I think they play hard. I think Garoppolo is going to definitely target him quite a bit this coming up here, and he's going to show out again.
My problem with that is I think the reason he was only targeted 3 times in the Super Bowl was because they don't trust Jimmy G in the big game. They didn't trust him. They didn't let him throw the ball down the field at all. They wanted to run the ball. Even when they fell behind, they continued to run the ball. And that's not going to change, I don't think, this year. I mean, Jimmy G, that was his second season with the team. If they didn't have trust in him then, what's changed now?
I agree. I mean, I don't know. Relative to stud or dud, I still say stud just because of the position. I mean, just because of the tight end position. I mean, you know, he's for sure a top 3. I mean, tight end.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to get the volume.
Within the position, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a dud pick because you're taking him in the second round and you're passing up on players that are more guaranteed in volume,
right?
To take him. So to me, I'm saying dud.
I'll say dud. I don't think I won't be taking him in the second round.
Yeah, I just don't think you can.
Yeah.
I don't think you can pass up on some of the players that are there and sleep good that night when you go to bed. I'm having nightmares, you know, like George Kittle's just drifting into my sleep, and he's got an axe in my fantasy team, and he's just axing down the rest of the guys there. Pretty scary.
Like
right?
Relative to what we just talked about, I mean, I think I would even actually take Austin Eckler if it was my RB2 over Kittle.
Yeah, sure. And he's going a 4 round later.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
I'd really get the guys that are going in the second round.
You're in on Kittle in the second round, then, though, Dylan. You're saying stud, sticking with it. You gonna?
I'm going to stick with. I'm going to stick with him. I'm a big Kittle guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with him. I mean, he had over 1,000 yards last year. I think he does a little bit better than he did last year. So
if you look at that efficiency, though, you got to have a little bit of worry on some of that. You know,
85 of 107 on the receptions, right?
What's that?
Pretty good. He had 85 receptions on those 107.
Yeah, 85 receptions, and he had over 1,000 yards too. So his yards per reception are pretty ridiculous. His touchdown total was high on that amount of catches. I just feel like he's bound to have some regression.
I understand.
Yeah. But I mean, you stick with it there, man. I like it. Stick to your guns. I mean, we got to take somebody's money in fantasy, right, Pat? Huh?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. So, last week on the show, we had a special guest Mark on, and we talked about a guy. He's kind of polaristic in the fantasy community and on the football field. I think he's a little bit of a polaristic player overall. Odell Beckham Jr. He was a fantasy darling for the first few seasons of his career. And, but he seems like he's fallen from grace. Where do you guys have him? You think he's a stud this year or a dud? Pat, we drafted him in that mock draft about 2 or 3 weeks ago on the show.
We did. I think he was our wide receiver 3 or 4, though.
4? He was a wide receiver 4?
Yeah, from that position, stud.
Yeah.
But I think he was still, I mean, what was he? I think he was a top 30 wide receiver. Maybe he ended up at 28, something like that.
In that draft?
Or no, just last year, his actual finish.
Yeah, and it didn't even feel like he should have been in that range, like
Right.
because our
Yeah.
expectations for him were so high from years past.
Right. I think he is an electric player. Everything I've read is that, he did have injuries, going on throughout the season. Of course, struggling quarterback play with Baker. Not quite taking that leap, but I think and a lot of that tied back to the O-line, which they have done a big, they've taken some big steps to improve it. I think it will be much better, their offensive line this year, which in theory should help Baker. In theory, then that should help OBJ. So I think he for sure will finish higher if he plays all or most of the season. He will be higher than wide receiver 28 or wherever he finished last year. So
yeah, he's going as wide receiver 24.
Okay,
right now.
I say stud. I think he can easily beat that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's going 503. That's his draft pick.
I would love to get him right there. If I can get him in every league, I would take it right there every time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about it, especially when you got guys like A.J. Brown going at the 404.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm a Titans fan, and I wouldn't do that. I would take
wide
OBJ.
receiver 16. Come on now.
Yeah.
I mean, even Stephon Diggs is going as the wide receiver 19 before him.
Yeah, I'd rather have. I just think OBJ does have that upside.
Absolutely. I mean, he could be top 10.
Yeah,
right?
Easily.
Oh, yeah.
His ceiling is easily.
I mean, that Giants team that he was on as the number 1, 2, 3 wide receiver wasn't good.
I know it was mediocre at best. The years he was great. So
I think we've flipped too far the other way. That pendulum swing has come,
but I love it because we're getting a good value
cheap, baby. Yeah.
Not to mention they got rid of that stooge Freddie Kitchens too. So they just
got
to
a
help
good point
him.
as well.
Yeah, that guy's a putz.
Coaching staff improvements, offensive line improvements. It should be a better team compared to last year.
Yeah,
and I think Baker's going to be better this year.
I do too.
Yeah. I don't think he can be worse.
That's exactly right.
And I'm a Baker believer. I liked him.
Yeah, I do
Thought
too.
he should have been the first quarterback taken in that draft class. I remember how happy I was hearing his name called at the 101 because a lot of people thought you were dumb if you thought he was going to be taken there over the guy with the Jets there and Darnold and Josh Allen. And who was the other one? There was one more.
I can't remember.
I don't remember either. It doesn't matter because the first pick was Baker Mayfield, and that was the right pick. And I stand by that. I think he's had a pretty rough road there with the
coaching staff and poor offensive line.
With the Browns.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that. A quarterback having trouble working with the Browns.
Right.
So
wow.
Yeah.
Deja vu.
Yeah. Well, we're going to hit a couple players here on this last one before we get into the lightning round. Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones. Where do you view these guys? They're a couple of guys that are very reliant on efficiency. They're in some offenses that seem to know how to utilize them, but there are a lot of pieces that we rely on outside of them just being able to make it happen for themselves. So what do you guys think about those two players?
Of course, these guys are both, I think, top 10 running backs in most rankings.
Alvin Kamara is currently going at the 104, and Aaron Jones is going at the 201. They are number 4 and number 9, respectively, at their position.
Kamara, I think you touched on this in prior podcasts. Was it last year? Yeah. I wouldn't say a dud. I think if I had to pick one to be a dud or stud, I would say Aaron Jones this year specifically. The Packers had their moronic draft. Took A.J. Dillon in the second round, quarterback with Love.
18 touchdowns last year for Aaron Jones.
Yeah, that's the regression is real. I think you look at stats that happens to every running back. That I think Gurley, those back-to-back like 18 and 21 touchdown years or something like that was one of the closest in recent last 10 or 15 years that reached those heights.
That's insane. Like that's just. That's a guy. There's a reason Todd Gurley was a first-round draft pick.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't recall, but I don't think they drafted another top prospect in the second round after Todd Gurley had a breakout year.
No. Absolutely not.
I think coaching staff, McFleur, grabbing up your cram hole, LaFleur. He's. I don't think he's got a lot of question marks around him, his coaching style, and. For sure, touchdown regression for Aaron Jones, and I think that's the opposite for Kamara. I think he, for sure, could have more touchdowns. I think he only had 5 or 6 last year.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, and Aaron Jones too. Like everybody thinks about him like he's this big receiving back, but if memory serves me correctly, he didn't have a ton of receptions last year. And I think that Aaron Rodgers is on a mission this year after they draft a quarterback. Don't you believe so? You think, maybe they call run in the huddle and then we get to the line and Aaron Rodgers check.
Yeah, call an audible, do whatever he wants. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. But for sure, Aaron Jones, I think, takes a dive from, what did he end up, RB3, RB2, something like that.
RB2, I believe, was pretty high. And let's not forget the fact, too, that he was very inconsistent. He just had several blow-up weeks that kept him up there in the rankings. And
it won you the week if you had him, but then you probably lost the next week because you kept playing him, hoping for the same, and then he had a dud. So,
yeah, I agree. What do you think, Dylan? What are your thoughts?
I agree with you guys. I agree with you guys for the most part on Aaron Jones for sure. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to come out and try to prove something this year, and he's not going to be looking at Aaron Jones as much as he has in the years past. As far as Alvin Kamara goes, I've never been big on Alvin Kamara. He did have a couple good seasons there, but he is just not done it for where he's being drafted. It just seems like you could have drafted 3 or 4 other running backs in that position by the end of the year and would have been better off. I'm just not big on him. I think that he's going to dud out again this year. Aaron Jones, possibly the same thing.
As far as Alvin Kamara goes, I see 3 backs I would take over him before where he's going at 4. And then you have to talk about wide receivers. Like I think Davante Adams, is definitely in the conversation over him because of – at this point, Saints are going to feed Michael Thomas.
Right.
We don't know that it's going to be that way for Alvin Kamara.
And I would say the same for Davante Adams. Like you just to our point, I think Rodgers is going to come out. Davante could very well have the highest target count this year, I believe.
I'm a lot higher on Davante Adams than I have been in years past.
I think he could light him up as much as he can handle this year as long as he's healthy.
As Brandon says, he's fresh.
Right.
So
there you go.
I think
great take.
Yeah, he's got the fresh legs over there. Davante Adams does.
Yeah.
So I think we agree. There's just too many people that are going to get fed before those guys. Potentially, it may not happen that way, but there's a world where they're the second, third option on their team.
Right.
And I don't want that in the first round.
No.
Especially the 4th pick there, Alvin. Sorry.
A little too rich for my blood.
A little too rich. I think we've got those guys covered up. Anything you guys want to hit back on there? We good? Good.
I think we're good. I'm good.
We're good. All right, we're good. We're gonna head on into the lightning round.
Lightning round.
I'm gonna ask these questions. You guys give me your short answer, and if there's anything that you feel passionate about, we'll come back. We'll hit it here in Thunder right after the lightning round, and I might throw in my 2 cents worth at that point. But right now, we just want to hear what you two fellas have to say. So with both guys going at the 201 and half-point scoring by average draft position, who do you want at that spot, Aaron Jones or Nick Chubb? Patrick.
After our previous discussion, I think I'll lean Nick Chubb.
Dylan?
Nick Chubb.
Okay, a couple of Chubbs there. All right. Mike Evans and Kenny Golladay are sitting at the ADP of 210 and 211, pretty much right there beside each other. It's respectively this. So you got Mike Evans at 210 and Golladay at 11. Who do you prefer given the option there? If you got your choice, Dylan, who do you want?
I'm going Mike Evans.
I will go Kenny Golladay.
I'm going Kenny Golladay as well. Just throwing it out there. All right, at the 304. Currently, Lev Bell and Chris Carson are sharing that position on average draft position. So who do you want, Lev Bell or Chris Carson, if you're sitting at 304? Who you got there, Dylan?
Lev Bell.
You got Pat.
I think I'm going to go Lev Bell at 304. If they're both sitting there, I'm going to pick Lev Bell. And I'm a big Chris Carson guy, but I'm going to go Lev Bell.
All right. DJ Moore is at the 405. Keenan Allen is at the 406, right behind each other. Both have new quarterbacks. Both have question marks. Who you want?
DJ Moore.
Agreed. DJ Moore, without hesitation.
We'll call that consensus. Both of the 4th round at 411. We have David Johnson, followed immediately by the other David, Mr. Montgomery at the 412. What David do you prefer there in the 4th round there, fellas? Back in. Who you got there, Patty?
Here we go with my guy, David Johnson.
I'll take Montgomery.
Interesting. We don't really cover quarterbacks much on the show, but I thought that Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers going back-to-back in the middle of the 7th round was a little bit interesting, and I wanted to know where you stood on it. Who do you guys want there, Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers? Young gun or old man? What do you got there, Dylan?
I'm a fan of the old man, Aaron Rodgers.
And I've been a Rodgers guy too for several years. Been big on Rodgers. I think I've got to go Josh Allen. I think I would go Josh Allen. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think I would go Josh Allen.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see here. What do you get? Did you guys feel passionate about anybody? It sounds like somebody's got an Animal House going on. But
yeah, I'm sorry about that. I have a wild Tasmanian devil running around somewhere in there.
It's all right. We're all going through quarantine.
Understandable.
Living that life. Welcome into Dylan's house, everyone. This is the non-neutral zone.
That was old Waylon.
Yeah, he's a Waylon. So, anything you guys feel passionate about, or you guys want me to dig one up here? What do you?
No, I think DJ Moore, man. DJ Moore, I'm big on DJ Moore this year. I think he's going to show out.
Yeah, he's got a steady, consistent quarterback in Bridgewater now.
Yeah, we were consensus on that. I don't know if we're going to thunder a whole lot on it.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited
just
about seeing him this year.
That,
I'm just excited. I seen you put that on there, and I'm just excited to see how good he does. I really think he's going to step up and be something special.
I want to go back, and I want to hit on David Johnson and David Montgomery. What do you guys think about David Johnson and David Montgomery? I know you said David Johnson, and Dylan, you said David Montgomery. I want you guys to tell me why.
David Montgomery, it's his time. I think David Johnson's kind of getting to be the old man now and going downhill. He's already been hit with a couple of injuries. When he did play, just falling off a little bit. David Montgomery, he's on his way up.
Yeah, Pat, your rebuttal?
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably just favoritism because I've liked David Johnson most of his career, but I think both guys got a pretty good shot at good volume. I kind of tilt towards Johnson, like I said, because I've been on the David Johnson train for a while. But just quarterback play, I mean, I think he's got a much better quarterback he's standing next to in the backfield. More
solid at the position for sure. I mean, they don't have a competition going on. There's no question marks there.
Right. So you don't know. I mean, you got to figure. Montgomery's got safe volume. I agree, but I agree. I think I've seen David Johnson is, obviously not, he's lost maybe half a step from what he did a few years ago, but I think he's just as good as Carlos Hyde, who was there last year. And I think he got something like near 270 total touches, I think, with targets and rushes. I think that's easily obtainable for him. I think he's got a little bit higher volume to me than Montgomery.
I think that's interesting there because they do have a couple guys they can use in Houston.
That's true. They have Duke Johnson, and I thought the same, but they also have Tariq Cohen, who's not gone away. He's still a part of that offense. He's a guy that commands 70 to 90 targets depending on the year.
Yeah, and they do have an alpha at wide receiver where the Texans don't. So
true.
I mean, you make some good points, and I think initially I do lean David Montgomery, but what flavor do you like?
Right. I was going to say too, when you're talking about targets, I've done some research and read that oftentimes when you have a lot of vacated receiving targets,
go to the running back.
Those go a lot of the time. Most of the time, those go to the running back. So
it's a comfort zone for the quarterback. You got that check down when you don't feel comfort out in the field there, deep routes, intermediate routes. You look short because that's a more comfortable throw.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I think Duke Johnson can still get his, but I think David Johnson could still get plenty of targets himself and still have a high rushing volume for the year. So.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty easy to look at the Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and kind of see whether it's a split decision. Do you want what you know, or do you want what you could have? What's behind door number one, or do you want what's here already shown to you behind the curtain? Anything you guys want to add before we dip out of here? No. Waylon, anything you want to add, bud?
I'm so sorry about that, fellas. He got a little
wild. You're good.
I tried to hide as much as I could. Jeez.
Listen, guys, if you want to find us, you can get us at the Non-Neutral Zone 1 handle on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. Just look up Non-Neutral Zone. We're on YouTube. You can listen there. Anywhere your podcasts are available, be sure to subscribe, download, leave us that 5-star review. As always, we really appreciate you. Stick in there with us. We're going to help you win leagues this year. Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you
for
for
helping
having
us
me.
out today.
Yeah, thank you.
We were shorter on Brandon than even normal. And,
Ba-boom.
and now, without further ado, you guys have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to hearing from you next week.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe wherever you listen and don't fall into the neutral zone.